Hello and welcome back to the Public Eye Business Podcast brought to you by Granite Exchange. And I am absolutely thrilled to announce that this is our 100th episode. I can't believe it. As always, I'm your host, Sarah Travers, and throughout the series, we have the opportunity to speak and listen to local entrepreneurs and business owners to learn more about how their companies have come to be, to gain insight into their growth, and find out, crucially, how they continue to innovate. So wherever you get your podcasts from, remember to keep an eye out for all new episodes and subscribe to stay up to date. So today I am joined by father and son duo John Bosco O'Hagan, founder and group chairman of Specialist Group, and his son Ciaran, who's now the group managing director. And folks, welcome to the Public Eye Podcast and this our 100th episode. So you're actually really special guests and you're here for a reason today. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
So before we begin, a little bit of background then on John, Ciaran and the family business. Now, with nearly 36 years of experience in the industry, John Bosco and then Ciaran are dedicated to creating bespoke high-end joinery pieces to intricate staircases and cabinetry. They have a passion for bringing their clients' visions to life. Now, John Bosco founded Specialist Joinery Group back in 1988. And as I said, he's the group chairman today. He's responsible for leadership and strategic planning, and he attends board meetings as well as sponsorship and big PR events. John is driven by the values of truth, honesty, integrity, quality, and a will to win. And his greatest satisfaction about life at Specialist is to see people happily working and winning together. Ciaran, on the other hand, joined the business back in 1997 as an apprentice, and he's worked his way up through various roles, including a workshop joiner, a team leader, production manager, operations director, and now group managing director. Ciaran has executive involvement in every aspect of the business and is heavily involved in all the many charitable causes the group pursues. Outside of Specialist, Ciaran's greatest passion is his family and farming. Ciaran will come back to that in a moment. So John and Ciaran, and I know there are other family members who can't join us today, but congratulations on building such a fantastic business. John Bosco, if I could start with you, because it all started with you. You began Specialist, I suppose, at a more mature age, in your early 40s. Why did you begin it all?
I suppose, Sarah, I had worked when I was 15. I first went to England when I was 15 years old. I then worked for several different employers. The last employer, Patsy Forbes, I worked for 15, 16 years. So I had worked probably 25 years or thereabouts for other people. And I decided that I had risen to as big a heights as I could, I suppose, at that stage. And I had talks with Patsy, and him and I agreed at the end of the day that I would move on. And I moved into making things like I wanted to make. I wanted to make high-end joinery products rather than boxes, or sometimes I call them onion boxes. I like to see top-class joinery. I was a joiner by trade, so I like to see nice stuff made. So we went into the business of, first job we had was a small primary school in Belfast. O'Neill and Brady gave us a contract for it, and we did that job. We then progressed from there to Belfast International Airport. We did a lot of reception desks, check-in desks, toilet cubicles, that type of thing, lounges, lounge bars, and all that sort of area. So we got into a nice way of going in a short period of time, I suppose, you know.
And were you surprised at the success, or was it something that you just knew, I've got something here and I know that people will love it?
Well, we're very small. I mean, there was only two of us to start with. We started an apprentice or two. So all in all, we built very quickly. I had in my old other job with Patsy, I was out on the roads quite often selling and talking to architects and stuff. So I had quite a network of people that I knew, and talking to them and contractors and things. We got an opportunity to price work for them, to talk to architects about what they wanted. So really, we just built nicely over the first couple of years, you know.
Now, you've grown this company, or it's grown now to be, you know, a multi-million pound company. What was the big break, do you think, for you?
Not quite sure. We had a number of good jobs, I suppose. We had many disappointments as well, of course, the good days, the bad days. All in all, you know, one of the largest jobs we did at the time was Dublin International Airport. We did a large fit out there, and we at around about the same time we did the criminal courts in Dublin, which was a very nice job. Moving on from there, probably the next big job was the Northwest Hospital in Skilling. We did a big fit-out job there, and those were the larger jobs at that time, you know, which was very, very good. Good breaks, just it got you moving on.
And at that stage, you had your young family as well. Did you always hope that they would come into the business too?
Well, the reason I started the business was at the beginning was to make sure that I could leave something to my family at the end of it all if it worked. So Teresa, my wife, and I sat down. I sat her down possibly and decided that I wanted to go out on my own. Her being a school teacher, I said, look, if you give it 4 years and let me get at this sort of thing, and your money should be for to keep us, keep the kids. So she agreed to that, and I started doing what I was good at, I suppose, or tried to be good at. And Teresa really reared the kids the first number of years on her own without me entirely. So it was difficult, probably, but I always wanted them to be better off than where I started, I suppose, and I was okay starting off. But generally speaking, the boys, the family is the most important bit to me, and still is to this day, thank God.
And you've 3 boys?
3 boys, who are all in the business. Ciaran is the top man, the other guys are directors in the business as well, running different departments. But all in all, it's very nice to have something to hand on. It's very nice that the family's in there, you know, to look at, look forward to seeing what's going on in the future, where the business can go to, you know.
So there was a bit of risk attached at the start, and, you know, Teresa realised that you were trying to build something, but those must have been quite challenging years.
They were very challenging for many different reasons, Sarah, really. You know, had a good bank manager who was very kind to us. We had a few good customers who paid us well. We had a few bad customers who didn't pay us at all. Everybody gets these things, I suppose. But all in all, you just have to knuckle down and get on with it, you know. One of the big things was when we broke into doing Irish pubs. We did Irish pubs abroad, did Irish pubs at home as well. But generally speaking, we did a bar in the Slieve Russell Hotel in 1991, the Kells Bar, which is still there to this day. The architect who designed that bar then asked us would we price another bar from, which was in Derry, Da Vinci's. We did it, nice job too, but it got us basically into a different area of work in top class bars. So we went into Europe. We did work for a lot of people, a lot of countries in Europe. We did some in America. And we got a big breakthrough, we thought, anyway. We were working for Murphy's, Heineken's own Murphy's at that stage, and we worked with Murphy's on them launching beer with a Royal Brewery in Tokyo, and we would have maybe a bar that would be recognised throughout the world as being a top-class bar. So it's like a franchise thing we called J.J. Murphy's. So we designed and manufactured a bar or two. We fitted one out in Bruges in Belgium, and went on to talk to the Japanese. I was there many, many times in Japan, and we were supposed to do 206 bars throughout the island and all of Japan. Talked very much to Mr. Sayo, who was the chief man in the big construction company, and him and I got on very well. Over a period of time, we took him to Belgium, took him to Maghera, showed him about. Strange people to work with, because you sort of have to get in the morning and have breakfast with people. Somebody else will meet you for lunch, someone will meet you for dinner, someone will meet you for supper. They've been viewing you all the time, you know.
Gosh.
If you were a person who went through university, maybe went to Oxford or Harvard or some of the major universities, then you raised on a very high level with them. If you go in and you're a joiner, you start on the floor and you have to crawl your way back up again. But over a period of maybe 12 months, we got on very well. and my money was basically done. We'd spent everything because Julian Allen had the menus for us. Uh-huh. We had the menus, we had the uniforms, we had the crockery, we had everything sitting there ready. And I was going to get a deposit for 6 pubs, which was the start. And on a Tuesday morning, I got a phone call to say Mr. Sayo had just dropped dead. Oh. Money done, Japanese people, you have to go and meet the next guy down the line, and it'll take a number of months before. I couldn't wait for a number of months, so I had to go back to building contractors and say, excuse me, could I be any work that we could be doing, because I'm sort of out of work and didn't want to say I was out of money, what I was. But all so in all,
put everything into this.
Yeah, this was the big one, So it collapsed, and we gathered ourselves up and moved out and back into dealing with contractors again. God be good to Lisa McComb was a guy. McComb was very good to us, give us a bit of a job and give me a lecture. He used to work for us, but now you had to go to the pubs. So all in all, it was pretty rough out of time,
And how long did that rough time last? How damaging was that to you, and how difficult was it to get yourself back up there fighting?
That particular passage lasted about 18 months. As I said before, we had a good back manager who had to bring in the directors. The director sat at the end of the table with me for, I think it was 13 months, once a month, going through it. Well, we solved it because we fight our road through it. We fought our road through that, and he left after 13 visits. The first visits were not very nice, but after a while we sort of proved that what we were doing we could do. We could make a few pounds again. And we got through all that, and he the last day he left, I shook his hand and hoped never to see him again.
Absolutely.
So, as I said, it's hard, tough times, but then you have to look at the good times and move on from there. There's no point in sticking with the bad times.
What did it teach you about yourself? Because usually during the hard times you learn something, and that realisation is not often instantaneous. It might be further down the line before you realise.
I don't think I ever learned anything about myself. I just am who I am. I did realise at that time we had some very good people around us who were going to stick with you through thick or thin. But a very good wee girl in accounts who her and I came in the middle of the night to look at books and try to make sure the place was solvent and all of that before the bank came in at the end of the day. She was a particularly good person to us and worked very hard. Moved on a year or two after that and married lady, but it learned me, that people around you are the most important thing you've got. Like family, brilliant, and your workers in general are brilliant. So be positive and work your way through it. It's all you can do at the end of the day. But there's no point in being negative and say, "What am I going to do next?" Get up and do it. Get on with it.
So, Ciaran, let's bring you in at this point. What do you remember about the business when you were growing up? What do you remember? Do you remember your dad being away all the time and your mum being there? Or what are your memories?
I suppose in many ways, Daddy was away a lot. I talked to my brothers, Sean and Dermot. They would maybe have the experience that Daddy wasn't there a lot. But my life was spent a lot of the time with my grandfather on the farm. So that left me that I never really felt that there was anything wrong, and there was nothing wrong, but I never really missed Daddy, and that's no disrespect to him, because probably I was doing my own wee thing over here. But so the early days, definitely, the man wasn't at home a lot, but you can't have both things.
No.
You can't have somebody trying to create something for your future and have them be by your side all the time. All the one thing I do know is he was always there at the important times in life, and that's whenever you need him. Mm-hmm.
But you followed in his footsteps with the joinery.
I had to, Sarah, because it was a very simple choice for me. I remember one evening, I didn't like school, absolutely hated it. And Mommy was a teacher in the same school, and she had big ideas for me. Maybe at one point thought I might be a doctor, but I don't know what it would have been of. So I went with Mum and Dad to Greenmount Agriculture College for an open evening. Realised that evening that it might involve me staying there for a year, and I was completely a homebird, and that didn't work for me. So coming down the road in the car, I got three choices. You either go to Greenmount, you go back to school and do your A-levels, or you come to the factory. So next morning at 7:15, we're heading to the factory. So that was my choice in the whole thing.
Now, what was that experience like?
Well, I suppose, unlike my two brothers, I hadn't spent much time there growing up over the summers and stuff, because I'd spent that on the farm. So it was all new to me.
So Sean and Dermot would have been in the factory, would they?
Yeah, they spent their summer holidays.
Are you the baby
there.
of the family?
No, I was the oldest.
Oh, you're the eldest, right? But you were away with doing
I
the
was
farming.
away doing the farming
right.
and that piece. Whereas they were supposed to do wee summer jobs in the factory and so on. So for me, it was complete change. Like, to have someone tell you what time you'll have your tea at, this bell, it was just like school again. It was like almost, and I to this day struggle with sort of 10 o'clock tea time and 1 o'clock tea. Like, I was used to
discipline.
That sort of discipline doesn't really work for me. But it's the way it is.
Yeah.
Actually, the first few years were quite, I'd say they're up and down. I would say it was the biggest pain in the backside that any man ever had for a son and employee.
Your dad's nodding.
I'm not shocked, to tell the truth, the way it is.
Yeah.
And then by about 22, 23 years of age, somewhere in there, I think it was when I met my wife or girlfriend at that point, you decided that, this farming was very good, but I need a living somewhere. And to live the life that not saying it was a terrible grand life, but that you're accustomed to, this would not do it. So it's time I got my sort of ass in gear here, for want of a better word, and done something about that. So I'd done my apprenticeships at that point and sort of came through. And that's sort of my experience. It was different.
But what did it teach you then about you having to come in? You're the boss's son. It could have been very different for you, but you actually worked your way up.
I think we had, I'll reiterate where Daddy was at, we had a lot of great people. Some of them people are there today, still there, when I was going through my apprenticeship. I've made my best friends there at work. Everything revolves around sort of our work, and that's the family and the extension of the family. So for me, at the time, it probably was difficult enough. You come out of school, your mum was a teacher there, now you're in a business, your daddy's the boss, as it was. But each role that I took on within the business, had it not have been for the people that were my friends and I grew up with, I wouldn't have been successful.
Yeah.
They made me successful, and hopefully I've made them successful in their own right as well, me and the team. So
how many staff do you have now?
We're circa 300.
Wow.
Thereabouts.
And where would they all come from?
I think you could say probably 150 to 60 of them are fairly local from certain parts of Northern Ireland, but within an hour's drive of the business, or HQ. There's then the rest are anywhere from Ireland, UK, Portugal, Latvia, Lithuania. Because we work a lot in London, there's an awful lot of different denominations in London, so you've got choices of great skills that you bring in from more international countries. So we've probably people from a lot of different corners of the globe.
It just is such an incredible success story, and if anybody's not familiar with Maghera, you can't miss the factory as I'm driving in from the Coleraine side on the right-hand side. I mean, it's a vast space. John Bosco, what does it mean to you to know that you've provided employment for so many local people in an area that maybe if you weren't working on the farm before, it would have been, would have lost these people to the town?
It's very important to me, Sarah, because the town when I first started there in 1988 was a pretty dead town. It was sealed off with troubles and one thing or another. And a few years later, there was a new industrial estate opened down at Toombridge, and Ledge and Industrial Development Board at that time would have liked us to move down there, but stuck our heels in and said, no, we're going to stay where we are here, because the town is the town, and we'll stick with the town, And thank goodness, because when you're paying people and they're spending money in the town, it's all very good. I'm very happy to see kids going to school and people who've served their time with us, families now, maybe sons coming back looking for a job, people working for you that their fathers maybe worked there before. It's very satisfying.
Yeah.
In all honesty, I think it's one of the proudest things that I have, with the people that are still there, the people who come there, and to see the town doing so well now, in all honesty. There's many other people in the town with businesses as well, but we're probably the biggest at the minute.
And Ciaran, that pride, I'm sure you feel that too, that obviously it's not just about yourselves, but just to know that you've invested in your home place.
Oh, certainly, Sarah, very, very proud. Very proud of the local community, the contributions that our business has, not just from a financial point of view, but from people's health and well-being as much as anything in our community. It's I'm proud to be part of it. It's not me, it's not Danny, it's not our two boys, it's a much greater family of that. And I think we have a very positive impact in the local area and areas further afield. It's phenomenal and it's nice. I sometimes say I'm really blessed to have the opportunity to lead this up.
And at what point did you get that opportunity to become the top man? And how do you choose which of the sons gets the top job, John?
That's a difficult one. My thinking on it all was Ciaran came in as an apprentice. The other pair of boys went to university, and Sean went to America for a period of time. And Dermot wanted to be a school teacher and did a bit of work at that, and then decided to come into the factory as well. So Ciaran to me was the longest there. He was the oldest, and my philosophy was you can't leave a business to three people because somewhere along the line there's going to be rows. So I elected Ciaran. My wife and I spoke about it. Ciaran was the man who's going to run the show, so Ciaran's going to be the top man. The other boys there are certainly with him as well, and shareholders in the business. But Ciaran was like, because he was the longest there, he knew the most about the business. He came through from being an apprentice right through to where he was today. And the other boys came easy either. It was hard for them. Even you come out of university with a degree, you still have to learn. To me, you have to learn to work as the first thing, and then
absolutely
bits and pieces. So all in all, it was a decision that had to be made. So we made it a few years back, and then Ciaran worked alongside myself quite closely for 2 or 3 years until we tried to get him into the frame of mind that I was in and how the MD operates, and got him to the point where I reckon his time was handing over to Ciaran. But I didn't want to leave myself with nowhere to go. So although I stepped back, I still stepped back into a role, if you will, not being the greatest decision maker in the world anymore. Ciaran makes the decisions, Ciaran runs the show, and that's the way it is, although I'm there in the background.
And there's real lessons for people listening to this, especially around succession planning in family business. How challenging was that for you?
Difficult in one way, but 2 or 3 years earlier than that, we did a course on it, which was about a 12-month course we did on succession planning.
Oh, 12 months, wow.
Yeah, it was one day a month or one half day a month we used to leave the factory. Teresa came in and a number of the top people we had there. We went out 1 day a month for, I think it was 12 months in total. One of the accountancy companies in Belfast were running it, and did a great job, because it meant that Teresa and I could sit down any night and have a chat over the next year or two about how things were and where things were going. I made a will when I was about 35 years of age, before I was in business at all.
Yes.
And I made a pact with my sister at that time that we would take a look at it every April or May time every year and just think, what way is this, what will we chop and change? And that sticks to this day. We still meet every once a year, whatever, and say this is the way things are.
Because things change all the time,
all
don't
the
they?
time, yeah. And it was important, but as I said before, Teresa and I were fit us down after that because she had been at the meetings about succession planning, and it was very good from her point of view because she knew what my thinking was.
Absolutely.
So
and you could always have that sounding board and
right.
a really strong relationship to do that.
Yeah.
And Ciaran, what was it like whenever you got the word that you were going to get the top job?
Sarah, that I think was in the making for a few years, It wasn't no surprise to me probably, or the rest of the family, or maybe even the business. At the end of the day, as I say, it started, as Dad explained there, with a course that was attended by us all. It was probably, it was very forward thinking, which is no shock to me when you look back on Daddy's sort of the way he ran his life. Like he started that journey out 2006 was succession planning. I was 26, Dermot was probably 20, and Sean 24, 25. That was quite early on. So it wasn't, it wasn't something that was a decision overnight. It was something you worked your way into.
And then when it happened? that first day? Do you
Well,
remember?
you were there. You were there when it happened. Daddy handed over officially on the 3rd of May 2018 at our opening and our celebration of 30 years in business.
Right. I was very blessed to be asked to host the proceedings that day. That was my first time meeting you all.
Aye, we're very blessed to have you, and you've been sort of part of the family, I hope, now over the last 5-6 years,
Part of the
between
furniture.
charitable things and anything you can do for the business. So great to have you on board.
Well, I was
Sarah,
just blown away when I got in there and, you know, just saw what you have achieved, and then to meet so many of your clients and customers from all over who were at that celebration.
Mm-hmm.
Ciaran, was it difficult to kind of say, I'm going to put my mark on the business now? Or were you always mindful of, Daddy's built this, I have to continue the way he's leading, or do I want to be a new leader the way I want to lead?
Another difficult question, Sarah. I'd say Daddy's been my best friend. So after Granda, then my Granda died when I was 19, you know, and once I got into the business, then it was kind of like, after I got to that point of the business is where I want to be, which happened about 22, 23. Over the years, the one thing I would say Daddy was great at was supporting you. So if it meant I wanted as a production manager to change the forklift, if it was at all possible, we did that. If it meant that we wanted to employ 2 people to do, I don't know, if it was at all possible, we did that. So operationally, I worked quite closely with this man for probably 15 years. And I would say there's been a challenge, if we're really honest, in our relationship from I did take over as MD. Because I'm being straight up and honest when I say, you know, still my best friend, but when you take the business and the relationship that we had and growing it with our team completely together and with our boys and many others, then I decided I wanted to put my stamp on it somewhere.
Yeah.
And in that first year, like with a great FD, God rest him, he died in 2019. You met him, Sarah.
Yeah.
Like Sean was like another father to me, and he was probably 20 years younger or so than Daddy. And there was things that you talked to Sean about to do with work and person that you didn't talk to Daddy about.
Yes.
And then Daddy had stepped down. Sean had stepped. Sean was taken out of this world.
Yes.
And then in another light, we had we have to this day our commercial director, and he went through a very challenging personal time where he lost his wife and stuff. And it seemed like me there's another key member.
Yeah.
And I have 2 chances here. It's either try to build something else, some new people, some new strengths, people that were already there, or fail. And that's just not an option around our house. The word failure doesn't come into it. Again, still by Daddy. Always talks about being positive, and sometimes I can be a wee bit negative, you know, when you're looking into a forest of trees and you can't see light. So I hope that answers your question. I did put my stamp on it.
You did. And you're not living in the past because you're holding on to maybe the older generation. You've got to look forward. What advice would you give to anybody else with a family business now about doing something similar when they're taking over the reins?
I think it's very important to always consider what the main core values of your business is. And for us, that's always been quality, honesty and integrity. Or it's honesty, integrity and quality. We call them our high Qs. So that's the values Daddy built it upon. They've been very successful for it for 35, 36 years. So I would say remember that bit, because that's the foundations and the core in which it's built on. I would also say that everybody has to somewhere in there try to be their own person and try to put their own stamp on things. In my experience, I'm agreeing totally honest. Maybe there's a better way of doing it sometimes than the way I would do it. Sometimes I'm a bit blunt, and sometimes that doesn't land very well with other human beings. So, truthfully, so maybe my bit is hold on to the core values of whatever the company has been built upon that won't be that far wrong. Don't overcomplicate things. Most people do. Just keep her basic. And no matter what system that is, don't let people overcomplicate. And over time, try to put your own stamp on it, but try to bring others along with you. And remember those who built it and handed it over to you. Try to remember their views and angles, and that they might be easier hurt than you are. And I know that, I say it from experience. I know I've hurt my daddy, and unintentionally along the way.
So people are all different, aren't they? And
100%.
people operate in different ways. And maybe if you've managed in a certain way and led in a certain way, and Ciaran is a different personality to you, John Bosco, how difficult is it then do you have to jump in or do you stay back?
I was always a person, Sarah, for jumping in, and that's not the right way to do it a lot of the time. So I've learned over the past few years that let people do what they're doing, have an odd word of encouragement, and no point in being destructive and telling them they're doing it the wrong way or whatever. They're doing it their way, and that's the way it's going to be. Ciaran in particular has done a fantastic job in taking the business from where I took it to where he now has it at. It's a different business entirely, and it's going to different places, and it's doing, I would say, different things than what we used to do. So it's easy for me to look back and say we did a good job. It's easier to look now and sit back and say, well, Ciaran and the boys are doing a great job. We're still a great team about there. We're looking for something new. Ciaran will come in someday and say, Daddy, what did you do in this situation? And I would think a minute and say, well, this is what I would do, but you don't have to do what I would do. But a little bit of advice here and there does a grand. That's why every morning I rise, I go into work if I'm at home, and I don't have a job to do really. As chairman, I go around meetings and listen to people and talk to different people, do bits and pieces that I'm asked to do. I'm free to do Granda things, do the school runs and whatever Grand does do. Here there's 2, Dermot is 3 and Sean is 1 and another one on the way, so hopefully we'll have 7 there in another week or 2.
Lovely. Yeah. And do you see them following in the footsteps going into the business?
God, no.
You just don't know? The next generation?
I don't know, Sarah, what'll happen. I'm 43 years of age. I hope I've got a long, healthy life in front of me, and I'm certainly going to help push the business forward and try to create a bigger team of people and keep moving in the right direction. What the family does with it, it's not just mine. So it's Ciaran, Sean and Dermot. We'll have to decide on that in a number of years' time. But advice I got one day from a guy who's been exceptionally successful here in Northern Ireland and been very kind to me. He said, Ciaran, one of the most difficult things you're going to have to do is build your business for sale, even you have no intentions of selling it.
Wow.
And we have no intentions of selling it. But what he meant by that was that you put the structures and the people and the systems in place that the business could do without the Ciaran O'Hagan, the Sean O'Hagan, the Dermot O'Hagan, the John Bosco O'Hagan. That didn't need that.
Gosh.
And then he said you'll have your own choice to do with it. So I think we have many years to work on it. We have an agreement as 3 brothers to visit this conversation in 10 years' time. So as part of our 10-year vision is that we'll have a chat then, and hopefully we're living well. I'll be 53 and we'll see where we go after that. So next generation, I'm not sure, sir. We'll see. Not many family businesses survive second generation.
No, that's true.
And then there's less survive third generation. Although it's not impossible, nothing's impossible. But sometimes there comes a peak in a business's life, and maybe succession for us might look like an opportunity to hand it on to someone else that can take it to another level, and it might look that we can take our maybe remuneration out of that and help our children start more new businesses. I don't know. Too early to say.
We'll come back in 10 years and follow this up then and see. Now, your dad mentioned then about you putting your mark on the business and you've taken it to the next level. What does that actually mean? What did you do differently? Where have you reached and how have you built?
Well, I think it's very gracious of Daddy to say I've took it to a new level, and I appreciate it and thank him for it. I took it with my brothers. I've got great family support at home from my wife and children. To be fair, Ciara supports me in everything that I go to do. We don't discuss a lot about work. That's just the relationship we have. But nobody tells me, you're travelling a lot, you're maybe doing too much work. I get great family support. So that's the first key piece. Second piece is the 2 boys work very hard with me. We've got a number of key people around us at all levels. So it's not just the people that sit in the board of directors. My right hand is a girl called Karen Tinner. She does a lot for us as well, as you well know.
The wonderful Karen, yes.
And there's a board there's many people, from team leaders in the factory to team leaders on sites to your logistics manager to the men that look after the maintenance of machines, the people that open the gates for us and lock up for us, the people that are training the next generation of people. Like, I've put Derek Smith in there, who was our production manager for big end of 14, 15 years, and a sidekick of mine. Derek's now, his role is trying to lead a world-class training academy for young people to come into and come through our business.
Oh my goodness.
And he has put his mark on that in the last 12 months. So I don't think I put my mark down much, other than potentially it's just different. We're dealing with a different market. So our market today is fairly heavily reliant on London, fairly heavily reliant on commercial office fit out and high-end residential. And I suppose that has brought exponential growth over the last 5 or 6 years. So you could potentially say part of my stamp has been the growth and been able to, with the team, put in the systems and the processes to cope with that growth. Because I would say from 18 to now, we've probably grew about, I'd say we've put an extra 50% on turnover.
Gosh.
I.e. from 2013 at our 25th birthday to today, at our 35th last year, 10 years, with 500% growth roughly in turnover.
It's incredible.
And we've managed over to maintain the profit margins with that, because turnover is not everything. So I think that's possibly this time.
And what are the biggest challenges that you face or have faced to date?
Challenging projects or
challenges with being the boss and growing. I mean, we've had COVID in the middle of all of that. For many people, that was actually a huge opportunity. But I'm just wondering, what has been the biggest challenge for you personally? I know your dad has had different challenges.
Well, for me, the first major hurdle we had on my role was Sean Maghera, our FD, taken sick. March 2019. By November 2019, he was dead. Big gap. You had to deal with the emotions of that, deal with the business impacts in that, and then for the next number of months, try to get your head around it. And like, sometimes people think, well, that's your job, but I'm a human being too. By the 23rd of March 2020, we had COVID. We had people kind of walking out of the factory in fear, not for any other reason. We coped with that and trying to get people off work, people then back to work, and get that all reintroduced. We actually weren't allowed to close, although we had a lot of people off. The construction industry had to move forward. And
were the order books good at that time?
Order books were very good at the start of COVID, but then production slowed down because projects slowed down a wee bit. So we coped with that challenge quite well as a business, and it taught us a few things about being agile and moving at different things. The next thing, you had all your inflationary pressures, and we're a business that commits to work sort of 12, 18 months in advance. So we get caught really, for want of a better word, with our trousers down. Then once we get all that settled down, which causes a lot of pain, a lot of financial pain, and we get that settled down, then we're now moving into like a different world. We're moving into a world now more about sustainability, more about the circular economy. And that's been a challenge.
In what way?
Well, I think sustainability is not, it's not hard from the perspective of, we know now what sustainability is all about. We know what, as a human being, what we can do to help and contribute to. But it took a while to get all bedded in over the last 5-10 years. But it's really coming to fruition now, where this year we will cut our carbon footprint by 65% before the end of August.
We will,
and we're well on track to do so. Next year we hope to wipe it out completely and become carbon neutral. That's been, a lot of construction companies are heading that direction, so that's where we need to be. But we need to also remember that in that, all we're doing is what we should have been doing anyway. So it's trying to be new and innovative, and like, there's a conversation going on in our industry for about the last 6 to 12 months, reference the circular economy rather than this linear economy where we live in, buy stuff today and we throw it out someday. It's almost about can we build a type of furniture that we can put in today, and maybe in 10 years' time, when it's approaching the end of that client's life, can it be useful in some other walk of life other than for heating your factory or making wood pellets out of? Maybe something that can be reused in a hospitality space.
Gosh, repurposed then.
Repurposed. And there's a lot of conversations going on around that, Sarah, and what's probably challenging about it at the moment is it's different. Mm-hmm. It's new. It's new to designers. It's new to the people that build the stuff. It's new for developers.
But for clients, is that really important? Do they want to make sure that the people that they're, going to for their work, that they are bought into that sustainability, that circular economy?
I think it is exceptionally important, and that's where it's at today. But I think in the next 5 years, it'll become even more important. So, like sustainability possibly 10 years ago, at a point, sustainability was almost like a tick box exercise.
Yeah. You said you were doing it.
You said you were doing it, so you're happy enough.
But now it's about proof, isn't it?
But you got to prove it, and you got to make it happen.
And you got to want to do it.
And you got to want to do it. And as another wise man explained to me in the last few days was, what do you want to do? You want to make it about doing what's right. What do you feel your values are on what's right for the country, for the world that you're going to leave someday? What can you contribute, and what are you going to do? And I think that's the most important thing, so that you can actually stand back maybe at the end of your life and say, well, I added this wee bit and this wee bit and this wee bit. From a circular economy point of view, bringing it back onto that, I think it's new for us all. I think it's something that will be many conversations on over the next few years. I think that it is important to clients today, but I do think over the next 5 to 10 years it'll get more important. In my opinion, the buyers of today are still at school. The buyers of tomorrow, they're still at school. And although I'm in my mid-40s, sustainability and circular economy is something that we can get our heads around. But the people that are at school today in their early teens, it's something that's just going to be common to them. It's an expectation. And them people are the buyers of tomorrow. And they're the people we all need to be focused on.
And it's also about your suppliers too, and who you work with, that they're aligned to the same
100%
principles.
the same principles.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I think the construction industry is leading the pack in many, many forms. And that's from a government level right through. Hey, we could always do more. And I do believe we need to just sort of push ourselves as collaborative groups more and more and more, and we'll get there.
Well, incredible vision and, purpose. And what I'm hearing, John Bosco, from something that you started up with just two of you, where always it was about the people and it was about the place. But now we've got the planet on the agenda as well. Does that make you proud?
Very proud, Sarah, yeah. No doubt about that, because when you get the younger generation thinking the way I think, the way Ciaran's thinking, but then I'm not there to put those things into action. He knows more about it, studied more about it than ever I did. So it is very, very important. That the whole economy is important, but the whole world is very much, as far as sustainability goes, very, very, very important. And we have to catch on to that.
Ciaran, what do you see as the biggest trends and I suppose the challenges facing the joinery industry today?
There's many challenges, Sarah, but I would say when you set aside the challenges that we all know about, I think the challenge going forward for all manufacturing is going to be finding the skilled workforce to deliver in the future. And I think that's one thing Northern Ireland has in particular, is where we've come from an education system and we've come from a place where we all wanted to learn and do better, and like an awful lot of the world's screenwashing equipment is produced here in Northern Ireland. So, but I think we're losing that, and I'm not sure what we need to do. But I think education needs to become closer aligned with industry if we're to keep this momentum going that we've built for so many years.
How big a problem is recruitment for you?
Recruitment in general it's a problem for everybody. We're getting through it. I think we're a good employer, which helps. But it's difficult. I think what's most difficult is to find the new generations of people coming into business and coming in at a ground level that actually want to be a really good craftsman, whether that be joinery, metal, glass, ceramics, whatever it may be in. I think that's a challenge. and I don't know whether that's something that has happened in just a change in culture, or whether it's seen out there as potentially a second-class citizen's job among the parents of this world. I'm not sure, but it's far from a second-class citizen's job. So many of our leadership team today started out life on our factory floor.
And those skills, they'll take you places, but, you know, do you get paid enough money?
Oh, in my world, we maybe get paid too much at times, but no.
But you recognise those skills.
Okay, look, the skills, trades of the future are going to, in my world, they're going to be a currency of their own, because the skills aren't out there.
Yeah.
So we all know what it's like to get a tradesman to do something at your house today. First of all, you can't get him, and secondly, if you do get him, you think you need to take out another mortgage, and he was only there for 3 days. But no, I think I think we've got a job to do. Like, we have, behind every good company, there's great people. Yeah. And great people with a hunger in their belly. And a hunger in their belly to do better, no matter what that is. And I think that's a bit of culture we're losing. And it's going to take some massive changes within education and industry. And maybe it'll be a financial crash, I'm not sure, that'll cause people to have a hunger. But why wait till there's a financial crash? Why wait till there's some catastrophe in the world? It's like, why would I wait to stop smoking for the doctor to tell you there's something wrong? I think, why wait? There's something now that we all could be doing that would make a sustainable life for Irish and UK manufacturing, Western world manufacturing across the globe. But we need to do something, and we need to do it now.
And John Bosco, a joiner by trade.
Yes.
Do you have any regrets?
Absolutely none, Sarah. If I had my life to lead over again, I don't think I'd do it that much different. I think I've had a good life. I enjoy the carpentry work. I enjoyed the timber business. I've been a carpenter. I always recognise a fairly good carpenter. I love good carpentry work, and I don't think I would change anything in my life at all, right up until this day.
Would you still work with wood?
Yes, but most definitely.
And what do you feel when you're working with the wood?
I'm an old sort of a human being. I can smell the timber. I really love to see the tree growing. So something you plant on the ground, it's like a human being. It has to be born. You have to plant it. You have to grow it up, and has to. The terrible thing sometimes is looking at some very, very good timbers are maybe 400 or 500 years old, and it's just to see that has grown that length of time, and now you've killed it and somebody look at it. I remember being in Jerusalem in the Garden of Gethsemane, and there's a fig tree there that's 3,300 years old. And the thing I learned was that a fig tree, when you plant it, needs water for the first 3 years it's in the ground. It never needs water again.
Oh my.
So, but it's a strange looking tree, but it's the oldest tree I ever saw, Mm-hmm. So I looked about it and smelt it and did all the bits and pieces I normally do with timber. I love timber. Different timbers make an awful change to my life to see a new timber and see what it's about,
You also do incredible charity work, and I want to talk about that a little. I've witnessed it myself, and anybody who has had the thrill and the pleasure of attending the Project Santa events, which have literally become sort of high points of everybody's Christmas calendar now. Ciaran, I suppose that was really your baby, wasn't it? Starting out to want to put on something for the staff, for the community, but also that raised money for charities that were really important to you. And you have raised hundreds of thousands of pounds.
Yes, Sarah. Well, I have to correct you there. I think it wasn't my baby, although I would like to take the credit for it. It started off with an idea. Might even have been our Dermot involved in an idea about doing something for charity. Daddy was involved about doing something for charity. And then true to form, I probably come up with a bigger idea because I don't like doing things wee.
No, you don't.
And I ran it past Karen one day and we were having a chat, and she quite liked the idea of giving to charity. She's a very charitable person. So, look, between us, we took it forward. I'd say it's probably pretty much led by myself and Karen on a yearly basis, and it's grown over the years.
I wonder how much you've raised in total over the years.
We've raised about $1 million, maybe just over $1 million.
Yeah.
And so we did 2016 for our own staff. We then said we'll do 17 for the public, 18, 19 for the public. Went back to it in 2022. Did the 2023. Like last year was phenomenal.
It really was.
212,500 in one weekend. And people say there's no money in the country.
Yeah.
Like,
but the difference that money will make to so many charities, you really spread the love as well. How do you choose the charities that the money goes to?
Everyone within the business basically gets a say, and you ask them what charity they would prefer, you know. So the top 20, 25, whatever number you're going to give to are people who get, so that every worker has a say in who gets the money.
And what do the charities say afterwards when they receive the money? I mean, when you hear about where the money goes to, does that make it all matter?
The answers are exceptional, really. You know, how you choose us and how we and all this money is fantastic. We'll have to keep this charity going on for another 12 months or whatever. You know, it's really. I don't agree with Ciaran that it wasn't his idea. I do think it was a bit of chat about it, but Ciaran's idea is the big idea the way it is today, you know. And
go hard or go home, Ciaran, isn't that you?
Go hard or go home. I always say use the Disney World experience. If it's not as good as Disney World, forget about it.
Yeah, well, I think you could give Disney a run for its money. Yeah, absolutely. In your spare time, you still love the farming?
100%, 100%. And it's probably like I've no experience of being an alcoholic, although some people could potentially argue with that. But we bit of a farmaholic.
Farmaholic.
Or workaholic in many ways, yeah.
And is that a release from work as well?
It used to be. It probably was before the MD's role. I'd say it was more because like you'd tell somebody there taking all the responsibility for the whole thing set on Daddy's shoulders. Although I could support that, there was occasions when I could slip off and do a bit of farming. I'm very dependent on two guys in particular in my life that have been with the business to begin to 30 years. So I always describe them as they're like two brothers I never had. So Desi and Francie both work on the farm. They work in the business. They give their evenings to the farm. They give their weekends to the farm. It's probably, we're discussing this coming down the road in the car, it's as important a bit of their life to them as it is to me, I believe. So they've had to sort of step up a lot in the last sort of 3-4 years to allow me to do what I'm doing. Still farm most evenings, be there most evenings, be there every Saturday, most Sundays, and attend all harvest stuff and make most of the decisions around the farm myself. But well supported by them two boys and a number of other guys in the community that come together. Like you could be in our yard on a Saturday morning, you could have 10, 12 people, ranging from 14 years of age to 50, 60. Daddy, Mommy still make the family fry every Saturday morning, 10:30, 11 o'clock.
Love it.
Go there. My wife makes the dinner every Saturday evening for the men, or most Saturday evenings. Maybe the ones that we've chose not to go for a wee beer on.
Yeah. So it's tradition, it's routine, it's family.
Yeah.
It's like,
that's what it's all about. And you've got to enjoy life as well.
You have, yeah. It's very important to enjoy life, and particularly enjoy family life. You know, I think I take a lot of pleasure in the family and how they're getting on and how the grandkids are doing and what they're doing, and football and camogie and hurling and whatever that they're engaged in. Basically, it's just important to 300% both following them all over the place. Yeah, it is very, very important.
And you also recognise that importance in your staff too, and their time with their families. It's really, you have 300 employees, but actually the ripples of specialists go much further when you think about all the people that you impact and change lives.
It's interesting, Sarah, you say that because, even in a small way, the ripples of the farm, and there's so many things there that affects young life and older life in a positive way, all walks of life.
Yeah.
And the ripples of that and how that affects how we do business. So many of the life lessons that I learned as a child growing up on the farm, I take them into the boardroom. They're not things that you learn at school. They're not things that you learn at university. They're not things that you'll go on a course to learn, but they're just life things. Mm-hmm. I think my grandfather once said, two of the biggest assets you'll have on a farm is your eyes and your ears. And that is so that you can see things that aren't going right, where it's a crop not growing properly or an animal sick. You can hear maybe a particular roar. It will tell you something if you're there. So they're the two most important things in business as well. What you can see and what you can hear. And to hear, you have to listen. That's the way it is. And to see, you have to open your eyes and not be blinkered.
Yeah.
And that's, so to me, them things were taught on the farm, and they come right through. So our farm's much more than just a farm. It's an extension of the family.
And a way
and
of
it's
life.
a way of life. I think that's a great description. It's a way of life.
Yeah.
It's certainly not something that is financially very strong. I really, really take my hat off to those who farm and provide this world with food for very little financial remuneration and a lot of very, very hard work. And I think Jeremy Clarkson, in fairness to him, his farming escapades, for want of a better word, they've taught people, you know, how little is actually in this for the guy doing the work or the lady doing the work. But without this, we would have no food in Tesco shelves.
So true. So true.
Sorry, enough about farming.
No, we are nearing the end of the podcast. I could talk to you all day, but as I introduced you at the start, you are our guests for our 100th episode. So the final question to you, given John Bosco, I'm going to ask you this one because you have built this business from effectively nothing to what it is today. And the purpose of this podcast is to inspire existing business owners and ambitious entrepreneurs to grow their business by offering an insight into the success of businesses such as Specialist Joinery Group. So what advice would you give to people who may have a business idea but have no idea where to begin or are unsure as to whether that risk is worth taking?
The only thing, Sarah, I would say to that is if the person or persons have an idea, they've thought it through, they've discussed it with whoever, it'll be just themselves or partners or whatever, and they have a good idea and they think it'll work, then my answer to that is go for it. Have a go, be positive. If it's a manufacturing business that you're going to be starting, make a good product. Make sure it's the top of the market product. Make sure that when you make it, you charge a reasonable price for it and sell it to the top of the market. You know, there's no point in going out and trying to do things on cheap all the time. Be honest and be honourable, be truthful, and have integrity at all costs. And go for it.
Fantastic advice. Ciaran, would you like to add anything to that?
Every child that comes in there's their business we bring schools and stuff in for, you know, for tours and one thing. And if I'm asked this question, I just answer very simply. Dream big, think big, and just keep moving forward. There'll be blockers within the way, but if you keep dreaming, there's nothing wrong with it, and it should come through. So keep her lit.
Thank you so much to John Bosco and Ciaran O'Hagan for joining me today on our 100th episode of the Public Eye podcast. Thank you to all the listeners as well for your loyalty along the way. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. It's such a privilege to be able to speak to brilliant people like John and Ciaran. Now, I'm looking for the book now, John Bosco. You have to get that book written, and you could maybe get a few tips, because on the next episode I'm going to be joined by June Alexander from Russell Alexander Publishing, and she will give us all the secrets on how to get everything down on paper. Thank you so much, everyone. See you next time. This podcast was recorded in Granite Podcast Studio. Interested in starting up your own podcast but don't know how? Granite Podcast Studio can help. Record your podcast in our state-of-the-art studio, which is based in the heart of Newry City. Our studio has cutting-edge and user-friendly technology and can seat up to 4 people. We also provide an editing service for our team, using your guidance and editing notes to provide you with a flawless finished product, leaving your listeners wanting more. For more information on how you can get started, visit www.granitepodcaststudio.com.